I said to him, "Do you remember me?" I was just standing. He says, "Nope." He said, "Nope." He said, "But do you want to hit the ball?" And I said, "Sure." And we're hitting the ball, and he was terrible. He wasn't hitting well. He had a back problem.
Oh, boy.
And he was cursing. But he was cursing, which I can't say here on the show. But he was cursing so much like we do as teenagers, and I'm cracking up hysterical. Because I'm saying on the other side of the court, I'm playing tennis with James Bond, and he's cursing just like I do, And I'm dying. I couldn't hit the ball back either because I was laughing so hard.
Martin Kove stands as one of cinema's most formidable presences, a master craftsman whose portrayal of Sensei John Kreese transformed him into the quintessential screen antagonist. With his steely gaze and commanding voice, Kove brought a volcanic intensity to every role, establishing himself within the rarefied atmosphere of Hollywood's most respected character actors. His 4-decade career has been marked by an unwavering commitment to authenticity and an almost obsessive dedication to his craft, qualities that have made him both revered and occasionally difficult to work alongside. The creative battlegrounds of film sets became arenas where Kove's uncompromising artistic vision sometimes clashed with fellow performers who approached their craft differently. These tensions, far from being mere personality conflicts, represented deeper philosophical divides about the nature of performance and the responsibility actors bear to their characters. Throughout his journey from the Karate Kid through the modern Cobra Kai series, Kove's interactions with 6 particular actors revealed the complex dynamics that emerge when artistic integrity meets collaborative necessity. These conflicts, documented through industry insider accounts and behind-the-scenes testimonies, illuminate not just the challenges of working with a perfectionist, but the broader evolution of acting methodologies across generations of performers. 6. Ralph Macchio. The original Karate Kid set became an unexpected theater of creative tension when Martin Kove's methodical approach to embodying Sensei Kreese collided with Ralph Macchio's instinctive, naturalistic performance style. Kove, drawing from his classical training and military background, immersed himself completely in the character's militant philosophy, while Mchio relied on spontaneous emotional responses that had served him well in his earlier television work. Director John Avildsen later revealed in a film comment interview that managing these contrasting energies required delicate diplomacy. Martin would arrive on set having spent hours researching actual military training techniques, Avildsen recalled, while Ralph brought this wonderful innocence that couldn't be manufactured. The friction reached its peak during the tournament finale, where Kove questioned Machio's interpretation of Daniel's victory celebration, feeling it undermined the gravity of Kreese's defeat. Cinematographer James Crabe observed the dynamic closely, noting how Kove would often request additional takes to explore Kreese's psychological complexity, while Mchio preferred capturing moments in their first, unguarded incarnation. It was like watching 2 different schools of acting philosophy clash in real time, Crabe commented in a Variety retrospective. The underlying tension stemmed from generational differences in approaching character development. Kove represented the methodical, research-heavy tradition of 1970s cinema, while Mchio embodied the emerging MTV generation performers who trusted their instincts over intensive preparation. Despite their creative differences, both actors maintained professional respect, with Mchio later acknowledging in Empire magazine that Kove's commitment pushed everyone to elevate their game, even when it felt uncomfortable. 5. William Zabka. The creative friction between Martin Kove and William Zabka emerged from fundamentally different interpretations of what made the Cobra Kai philosophy compelling. Kove envisioned Sensei Kreese as a tragic figure shaped by wartime trauma, while Zabka approached Johnny Lawrence as a misunderstood teenager reflecting contemporary youth culture. This philosophical divide created substantial tension during key scenes where their characters' relationship defined the entire dojo's atmosphere. Producer Jerry Weintraub documented these clashes in his production notes, describing heated discussions about character motivation that would extend well beyond scheduled rehearsal times. Martin would arrive with historical military manuals, wanting to ground Kreese's teachings in authentic combat psychology. Weintraub revealed in a later Hollywood Reporter interview. Bill saw Johnny as more intuitive, rebelling against authority while simultaneously craving approval. The most significant confrontation occurred during the beach party sequence, where Kove felt Zabka's portrayal lacked the disciplined aggression that Kreese would have instilled in his prize student. Casting director Caro Jones witnessed several intense exchanges where Kove questioned whether Zabka truly understood the mentor-student dynamic they were portraying. Stunt coordinator Pat Johnson observed how these artistic disagreements actually enhanced their on-screen chemistry. Their real-world tension translated into authentic conflict between the characters, Johnson noted in a Premiere magazine retrospective. The underlying struggle represented broader questions about authentic villainy versus sympathetic antagonism. Zabka later reflected in Entertainment Weekly that while Kove's intensity initially intimidated him, it ultimately taught him the difference between playing a character and becoming one, even when that transformation feels dangerous. 4. Thomas Ian Griffith. Martin Kove's protective instincts regarding his Sensei Kreese character reached their zenith during The Karate Kid Part 3, where newcomer Thomas Ian Griffith's portrayal of Terry Silver threatened to overshadow the carefully constructed legacy Kove had built. The veteran actor viewed Griffith's flamboyant interpretation as undermining the psychological complexity he had invested in Kreese's military influence philosophy. Director John Avildsen found himself mediating between two vastly different approaches to screen villainy. Martin had spent years developing Kreese's internal logic, Avildsen explained in a Directors Guild retrospective, while Thomas brought this theatrical energy that felt more like stage work than film acting. The tension became particularly acute during scenes where Silver and Kreese shared screen time, with Kove frequently requesting script modifications to preserve his character's dignity. Production designer William Cassidy witnessed numerous discussions where Kove challenged Griffith's scene choices, particularly regarding Silver's over-the-top mannerisms. Martin believed that authentic menace came from restraint and psychological precision, Cassidy revealed in a Production Design magazine interview. Thomas was exploring a more operatic approach that made Martin visibly uncomfortable. The conflict reached its peak during the final dojo confrontation, where Kove felt Griffith's performance overshadowed the philosophical core of what made Cobra Kai dangerous. Script supervisor Marianne Kellogg documented several instances where Kove requested line changes to maintain Kreese's psychological authority. Griffith later acknowledged in a Movie Line interview that while Kove's criticism stung initially, it forced him to find the human elements beneath Silver's grandiosity, creating a more nuanced performance than originally conceived. 3. Shaun Kang. The revival of Cobra Kai as a streaming series brought unexpected complications when Shaun Kang returned as Mike Barnes, reigniting creative tensions with Martin Kove that had simmered since their brief original film encounter. Kove's decades-long guardianship of the Sensei Kreese character clashed immediately with Kanan's evolved interpretation of Barnes as a reformed antagonist seeking redemption. Showrunner Josh Heald revealed in a Netflix behind-the-scenes featurette that managing these veteran performers required unprecedented diplomatic skills. Martin approached every scene with Kreese's complete psychological profile intact, Heald explained, while Shaun wanted to explore how Barnes had fundamentally changed over 30 years. The friction intensified during table reads where Kove would challenge dialogue that he felt compromised Kreese's established character consistency. Executive producer John Hurwitz documented several heated exchanges in his production diary, noting how Kove questioned Kanan's understanding of their characters' shared history. Martin felt protective of the original trilogy's legacy, Hurwitz observed in a Vulture interview, and Shaun's interpretation sometimes felt like revisionist history to him. The most significant confrontation occurred during the Barnes redemption arc filming, where Kove argued that Kanan's sympathetic portrayal undermined the authentic menace that made Cobra Kai philosophically dangerous. Series writer Hayden Schlossberg witnessed multiple script conferences where both actors presented competing visions for their characters' relationship. Cinematographer Paul Mayboom noted how their real-world artistic differences enhanced the on-screen tension between their characters. Kanan later reflected in a TV Line interview that while Kove's resistance initially frustrated him, it ultimately forced me to justify every choice Barnes made, creating deeper character authenticity. 2. Jacob Bertrand. The generational divide between Martin Kove's classical training and Jacob Bertrand's contemporary acting education created unexpected friction during the early seasons of Cobra Kai. Kove's mentorship approach, rooted in intensive character research and psychological preparation, clashed with Bertrand's instinctive method of discovering character through improvisation and emotional exploration. Series director Jennifer Salata observed these dynamics closely during Hawk's transformation sequences, noting how Kove would question Bertrand's choices when portraying a student influenced by Kreese's philosophy. The tension peaked during intensive training montages where Kove felt Bertrand's portrayal lacked the disciplined aggression that Kreese would demand from his students. Stunt coordinator Ken Barbet witnessed several instances where Kove would demonstrate proper technique, expecting Bertrand to replicate not just the physical movements, but the underlying mindset. Fight choreographer Janelle Kerfman documented how these artistic disagreements actually enhanced the authenticity of their scenes together. Martin's demanding approach forced Jacob to dig deeper into Hawk's psychological transformation, Kerfman noted in a Stunt Professional magazine interview. Creating more believable character development, the underlying conflict represented broader questions about how different generations approach character motivation and emotional authenticity. Bertrand later acknowledged in a Teen Vogue interview that while Kove's intensity initially overwhelmed him, it taught him the difference between playing emotions and truly inhabiting a character's psychological journey, even when that process feels uncomfortable. 1. Paxton List. Martin Kove's encounter with Paxton List during Cobra Kai represented perhaps his most complex creative challenge, as her contemporary training emphasized emotional accessibility over the methodical character construction that had defined his career. List's approach to portraying Tori drew from modern acting techniques that prioritized spontaneous authenticity, while Kove maintained that genuine character depth required extensive psychological preparation. Director Barbara Brown witnessed numerous discussions where Kove questioned List's scene preparation methods, particularly during emotionally intensive sequences, where Tori's aggression needed to feel genuinely threatening. Martin would arrive having researched the psychological profiles of actual troubled teenagers, Brown revealed in a Women in Film interview. While Paxton trusted her instincts to find the character's emotional truth in the moment, the philosophical divide became most apparent during scenes where Kreese manipulated Tori's vulnerabilities, with Kove feeling that List's naturalistic approach didn't fully capture the calculated psychological manipulation he was portraying. Acting coach Leslie Kahn, who worked with both performers, observed how their different methodologies created unexpected on-screen chemistry. The creative tension ultimately proved beneficial, with List later commenting in a 17 magazine interview that Kove's demanding approach taught me to find intellectual foundations for emotional choices, creating character depth I wouldn't have discovered through instinct alone. These creative battlegrounds reveal how artistic excellence often emerges from the friction between different approaches to craft. Martin Kove's unwavering commitment to authenticity, while occasionally challenging for collaborators, consistently elevated the performances around him. His conflicts with these 6 actors illuminate the evolving landscape of screen acting, where traditional methodologies meet contemporary techniques in pursuit of genuine human truth. Subscribe for more explorations of Hollywood's most fascinating creative dynamics.